Hey guys, thank you for tuning into the Better Ideas podcast. My name is Dakota, and I hope you guys are enjoying your year so far. It's the 6th when I'm recording this, so it still feels like a fresh start for me. I'd like to remind you guys before we get started, I just got a few things to go over. The first one is the Sweet Ascent show at the Bottleneck on the 12th of this month. That's, if you're hearing this when it comes out, that should be this Friday. So I really hope to see you guys there. Also, at the top of every episode from now on, I'm going to start welcoming my new patrons if I get any that week. And I got 3 new ones recently. So Jason Schrick, Josh Swanson, and Jesse Duckworth. Thank you guys so much for contributing to the show. It seriously means the world. And you guys are going to hopefully get a lot of cool extra stuff in exchange. So, I'd just like to give you guys the shout out. So for those of you who don't know, the Patreon is a platform for people to contribute to the show monetarily, and you get extra perks, but it also helps the show grow and expand and hopefully pay for itself at some point, because right now it just costs money. But I love it, so I'm going to keep doing it either way. It also has a community board where I can send messages to just the patrons or everyone on my Patreon page. So I encourage everyone to go check that out, even if you don't want to pay any money, because there's still pretty much all of my content on that website. So go check that out. Also, I have a new segment coming out here pretty soon called Church of Whatever. That's going to be sort of a solo thing that I'm going to do. At least in the meantime, I'll probably have interviews and conversations eventually on there. But for now, I'm kind of using it as somewhat of a spiritual outlet, to be honest. So it's going to be a little bit different. So I get it if you guys are more into these conversations than you are Church of Whatever, or if you're more into Church of Whatever than you are conversations with random people. It's fine either way. I'm trying to just have multiple facets and different endeavors with this podcast, because it's never ending, the possibilities with it. So I'm having a lot of fun doing that, and I really look forward to you guys hearing the Church of Whatever. Today's guest is a man named Jesse Duckworth, and Jesse is an interesting guy because my first encounter with him wasn't actually with him. It was with an article that he wrote that was called, I believe it was the time to stop blaming men is now, or it's time to stop blaming men, I believe. And it created a little bit of a stir. And we had some really good conversation based around it, I thought. And it kind of carried on off of social media, thankfully. And I ended up inviting him to come on the podcast and talk about his writing. But then I figured out, or learned after talking to him, that he had been in the works of starting his own podcast, and it's been a while since then. So they've actually released several episodes. So I would highly encourage everybody to go check out the Round Earthers Society podcast, where him and his co-host Zach, they talk about, pretty much everything, but they're very into like culture and politics and just those things that you're not supposed to talk about at the dinner table, but are always usually the most fun conversations. That's a lot of what they do, kind of like what we do here, but different style, different flavor. But I had to have my friend Will on with this episode because I actually feel like Zach and Jesse on their show do a similar thing to what Will and I do with Room for Nuance. And so this is almost like a Room for Nuance episode, where we're going to talk about some more culturally relevant things. It's not as abstract as when I'm normally talking about art and photography and videography and music and things like that. So it's a different kind of podcast and different kind of conversation, but I loved it. And go check out Round Earthers Society podcast. He also runs a publishing company called Heron Press, and they are, I believe, all under Asinine Productions, which is an independent media source. which is also really cool, being that they're sort of stationed in our area. So if you're a writer or if you're into any type of media, then I would encourage you to go check that out, just because we need to start teaming up with people like this. We all need to start creating our own sources of media, because, mainstream media is obviously not working. So it seems to me like local media makes a little bit more sense. So yeah, I hope you guys will welcome my guest, Jesse Duckworth, the political commentator, podcast host, writer, and man of many trades. I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. Well, you want to get started on this?
Yeah, that's good, man.
I've been recording for a while, so I'll just...
Okay, yeah, that's fine. That works.
But basically, this is just kind of free form. Like, we can literally talk about whatever. I know that you and Zach have an outline, and you guys cover topics and stuff like that. We do. I mean, obviously, the beginning is just like a free for all. We just kind of, none of that stuff's scripted. We just kind of find our way through it, and we just... Yeah. Well, we kind of do it the same, except literally none of it's scripted. I'll write down a tiny little bit. That's about it. Yeah. So. Well, it's not. Yeah, it's not that crazy on our end either. I do need to ask you though. No cursing. You want me to stay away from that and keep it clean? Oh no, there's no rules. Okay, because I was listening again to episode 2, and I was going back through it, and I'm like, man, I haven't heard them curse at all yet, so I'm kind of, And then you guys were talking about religious stuff, so then I was like, well, they haven't been cursing, and they've been talking about religion, and I'm thinking, the Thunderdome. Okay, holds board. Yeah, okay, because I'm depending on what episode, it could be completely different too. Okay. Like, I think the guy that I was talking to at the time was a Christian. He was. So you were just being respectful. Yeah. Well, it's not even a matter of that. Like, I definitely don't want to change who I am based off who I'm trying to interview. Yeah. But I think everybody, their dialogue changes a little bit, based off who they're talking to. It's conducive to the conversation. Yeah. But, yeah, man, there's no rules. So, say whatever you want, man. Well, thanks for doing this to start it out. I think that's an appropriate way to start. Yeah, I appreciate the you reached out to me, man. I definitely appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I actually I reached out to you because of that initial article that Josh shared, and it's created a little bit of a stir. Some interesting conversation. Yeah. Well, because I'm not good at filtering, and I try to be brutally honest when I can be. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of, and most of my articles are written because I have a feeling, I have a specific feeling towards a topic. Yeah. So then it comes out, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try to research this topic as well as I can, but I do have my own bias, and I've seen enough that I don't want to get too far into a rabbit hole here, because I think this could take us down a bad road. It's all good, man. But that's part of the reason that we initially started all this anyway. So we got to get into it. For sure. Yeah. Because what was it? The time. What was it called? The time to stop blaming men is now, or something like that. Yeah, I think so. And that definitely pissed some people off. But there was also, because I have some female friends that were like, yeah, that's exactly been my case too. That's exactly what happened. And I've been really close to some men that were destroyed in court, and didn't have a good shot in getting their kids, and didn't have a shot of even seeing their kids. I've just seen some. And I'm not blaming women. I mean, that wasn't the point. The point of it was not blaming women. It was also just not blaming men. I think that in society, we push certain stereotypes that, like, men have it easy, specifically like white men. They specifically have it easy. Yeah. And I worry about some of this, and I think, everybody, every group, and all kinds of people, they all go through their own stuff. It's not just certain people have it easy and other people don't. That's just false. If your goal is to get people talking about it, you're definitely successful in that, so. Well, I definitely pissed off that one person. There's always going to be people who get pissed off. She was definitely pissed off, and I tried to engage her, like, okay, what do you not agree with? Like, what specifically? And she's like, oh, just the whole thing. And she never would be specific, and I'm like, okay, I get it, but if you want to argue with me, I'll talk to you about it. First off, you're a cis white male, and you have an opinion. Yes, that's exactly what it was, too. That's exactly what it was. Because especially if I speak out on any issue, especially if it involves women, oh my gosh, dude, like, people will be like, what do you know? You're a man. Ugh, we can't just base... That doesn't mean I can't talk about something. I can talk about anything. I may not know as much about it, and
I'll say that right away. You know, I don't know your experience. I only know my experience.
And that same thought process, I feel like we apply a lot. You know, there's certain topics people say like that. You know, you can't talk about this. You shouldn't look further into this. Like, there's certain set things. And it's kind of
it's like if,
that, not being afraid to talk about.
It's like if exploring that topic like causes you to pick a side, then it's inherently opposing somebody. But I didn't get that really from your article. I mean, I definitely understood why it was inflammatory, like just because of how like it was kind of in your face.
It was,
but so at the same time, I do get why someone would read that and think like, oh, he clearly, you know, hates feminists or something like that. But I didn't get that vibe. I think I saw the nuance in what you were like trying to say. But when people hear these certain like trigger phrases, you know, like third wave feminism, or you know, especially when you try to bring up the whole like men getting screwed in court and things like that, because it's almost like by bringing. Sorry, what were you going to say? It's almost
like being pro-men means you're inherently anti-women.
Yeah.
Or like that same logic can be applied to a lot of talking points. But
well, what I try to do, I try to speak for people who are either not speaking for themselves or their society's telling them they can't speak for themselves because of maybe their privilege or something like that. You know, there's certain groups that already have people backing them and already articulating what they go through. And one group that doesn't get that, you know, is I feel is your average man. And especially because we start getting into equality and how much men have it better. But when it comes to, let's say when it comes to children, a lot of times we get killed. I mean, I think that I want to say it's men winning custody disputes is like 16%, you know, and that's, I was just pointing to some of the things that do not benefit men, like suicide rates. And other pieces that men obviously have their own problems. Every group has their own problems. Yeah. Some of them are more serious. Maybe some of them are more serious than others. But every group has their own problems, and we shouldn't even look at it. I don't even like looking at it in groups because that's not fair either. You cannot say that all white people have this or all black people have that. You can't do it. I think you have to go with the individual. And maybe depending on what color you are, depending on what socioeconomic class you're in, is going to affect your life, and it's going to affect the percentages. Most definitely. I'm not even disputing that. I'm just saying that we all have problems. Don't overlook other people's problems just because you think your problems are more significant.
Yeah, and it's like some people, whenever they hear that and they hear sort of an abrasive like article or opinion on something like that, then it's like they get this vibe that your opinions and your struggles somehow like devalues theirs, like by bringing attention away from third wave feminism. But it really doesn't, but it feels like an attack to them for some reason. Yeah. Although I think some people kind of choose to play the victim in some circumstances. There's definitely a case of where when people just hear certain phrases, it's like, all right, they fit the box of conservative, therefore they're my enemy, even though we should all really want the same thing here.
See, what I love is a lot of people, they hear a little bit of what I say, but they don't get the nuance in it, and they just assume that I'm just some completely red state Republican, and I'm not. I'm actually not. And then on most social issues, I'm actually pretty far left. It just depends on the social issue. Like if you want to talk about the legalization of drugs, I'm pretty pro the legalization of drugs because I'm such a libertarian in almost every facet that I think that they should be leaving us alone. Like what we do in our home stays in our home. Stay out of my bedroom. I want the government just to stay out of our business. That's what I'm more just anti-government. I think the two-party system is really hurting us.
Really?
Because I'm not, and that's what I think a lot of people, they just assume that I'm a Republican.
Yeah, I didn't mean that to sound like a surprise.
Well, dude, there's a lot of people, man. I think I get put in a box. That's what people do. They have to figure out how to categorize you. And then it allows them to build like a not a
profile.
Yeah, like
it's a caricature almost.
Yeah, they get to build that up, and then they can attack it. Because if you just attach these specific specific beliefs onto something, you can attack anything. You build a straw man. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
They build that straw man, and then they can beat the hell out of it. And that's what some people try to do to me, and then I have to try to come back and attack those things. Because I mean, if you want to, I guess here's one of the reasons that people would think that I'm conservative is because how do I want to phrase this? The thing that I think is more dangerous to what America is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know you guys from nothing. This is honestly the first time we've met. Obviously,
Yeah.
This is the first
maybe we should say this,
conversation.
first conversation we've ever had. So you
Yeah.
guys don't know me for nothing,
Yeah.
other than what you've seen, and society needs to stop blaming men, So
Yeah.
hell, I could come on here.
It's a hell of an introduction.
Yeah, I could
it
come
is.
on here and be like a total, just male chauvinist. I could be pretty crazy.
I was willing to take that risk.
Yeah, but you're probably hoping you're like, damn, this will get me some viewers.
Yeah.
And it's like,
haters
oh,
make me famous, bro.
yeah, he's like, oh, this is all this guy is. You mean he has all this nuance? It gets a little ridiculous. I did actually lose my train of thought though doing
No, you're saying how one way that you would say that you're a conservative.
Oh, I'm trying to go. Damn it.
Like the right way to phrase it is what you're saying. Didn't want to come off too strong.
Well, we'll have to come back to that because
Okay.
I lost part of it as soon as I started getting off on a tangent. That's my problem, and Zach and I have that same problem, dude.
Yeah.
We'll get off on that. We'll get off on a tangent, dude, and then the whole conversation's screwed.
Yeah.
But one problem I did have in terms of writing for that asinine piece is that sometimes I don't add enough nuance because it's kind of short and sweet. I don't like. I like writing kind of a short article so that more people will read it all. Because as soon as if I run into an article that's 5,000 words, man, I'm less likely to finish it. I'm going to be honest. I'll try to get the summary. I'll scroll through a little bit. Maybe I have an attention span problem. So I like doing something in almost like an essay format, a little bit longer, kind of get some of the points out there. And if people want to fight about them, we can kind of talk about it. So
Yeah.
maybe there wasn't enough nuance in that piece. I'll concede that. But I'm willing to also have that conversation about each piece of it as well.
Yeah. And see, that's why I felt like definitely, and I'm sure, Will, you'd agree that if you were to take every point that you made and dissect it, then you would be able to explain it with sort of a nuanced look. But it's like when you put that many points into one thing, some people just read it and all they see is like
What we experienced was a failure to communicate.
Yeah.
some Guns N' Roses.
The individuals who were particularly taken aback by that article, I feel like weren't willing to read further into what you were saying. So, I feel like that's...
Yeah, that was, and we're not definitely not going to name names or anything.
No.
I don't even know the person that was the one that commented more than anybody. But that person was
Perfect example.
not providing any ulterior points or anything like that. And that's the one thing that I said. I commented.
Really like directly addressing any of the points you had been making.
Yeah.
So it's...
And that's what I said. I tried to stay out of it. Like after that one comment, I think I've commented twice total, and I just said we understand that you're angry about this, but can you tell anybody
it's
why?
It's not even about the particular person. It's just a perfect example of how they went into it, and with your immediate strong. I feel like you put it out there what you were trying to convey right off the bat. And I don't think that person got any further than that. And like you were saying, applied this scarecrow. This is the type of person I'm talking to.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. And I did was a little brash. Yeah, sure it was. It was kind of in your face. And I just read that CNN article about how we need to start raising our boys better. And that's what the article pissed me off. I really disliked it, and then I started writing this counter piece, right? So then some of my disdain automatically went into it.
Yeah, speaking with conviction.
Yeah, and I do kind of remember what I was going to say earlier. The reason people see me attack the far left more is because I personally, like I said, I don't know you guys for nothing. I don't know what you guys think about America. I don't know what I don't know any of that. I have no idea your feelings whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But I feel like... And not that I don't think that the far right is a problem, but I'm worried about some of the pull the far left has in the media, in Hollywood, in our mainstream culture, and I think it is more dangerous to us. So people will see me attack it more. Okay. Now, if you want to talk about things like immigration, I'm actually pretty easy going on immigration. I'm more of a, hey, I mean, I have no problem with, let's say, reducing some of the legal immigrants per year, but I think that we need to fix our illegal immigration problem. I do kind of think that we should shut down the border because you can't have a bunch of people pouring in, but at the same time, we need to figure out a system to make all the illegal immigrants here right now, the 10 to 15 million people. We need to figure out how to make them legal, especially in the ones, if you're not breaking the law and you've been a good citizen, Let's make these people citizens. The people who have been breaking the law, get them out. So maybe we do increase 10 million, but we get all these people who are living in the dark right now, living in the shadows. I don't like that. I think it potentially increases crime because you have more people. If you're living in the shadows, you're going to be dealing with more people who also live in the shadows, and a lot of those people are criminals.
Yeah.
But a lot of illegal immigrants are probably good people.
There's not as many opportunities outside of the shadow either.
Because because depending on what who you want to work for, they may not allow you to work for them. Immigration has its own problems, but there's pieces, like I'm saying, I get pigeonholed into something, and then these are like, so I'm trying to reach out and like, I got to extend it all of a branch sometime, okay, here's a belief I have, here's another one that'll fall in line with some people who'll be like, who the hell is this guy? And that's the thing, like party politics, man. I think it's really bad for us. And people you have to identify with a party and oh, my party is virtuous and your party's evil. No. Each of your parties have some virtue and each of your parties have some evil. And you need to understand that it's not just the other side. And in fact, I think even just aligning with the party and saying that you're that party is probably a bad thing for you. Am I going to piss some other people off? But oh well.
I mean, from somebody identify, right of center, libertarian, just from what I've heard you say, like, I can see how people would assume that. Not that I disagree or agree with you,
Yeah, no, you're fine. You can't agree with, you can disagree.
I can see why people would assume that, and if you've ever had a problem with people. I mean, how many articles have you written for Asinine? Was that the first of its kind?
No. That was probably like the 10th article.
Okay.
We've been, I know we were here because of the Round Earther Society stuff, and we talked about Asinine. The big picture idea was Asinine Media. We're trying to create like an independent media source, like a multimedia corporation. That's the problem is in terms of money. That's our biggest problem. Yeah. But we're trying to do a lot of different things. Like because at first we started a small publishing group, which we were publishing mostly fantasy. Because I write a lot of fantasy. So we also want to do this Asinine stuff. And while we were kind of on hiatus because we were having some problems with some of the video and not having good enough equipment and the problems of trying to get 4 people together because of schedules and stuff, we started writing articles for it as well. And then that was probably actually the one before. I had written an article before that got a lot of play that a lot of people were pissed off about, and it said parents stop circumcising your baby boys, and that pissed people off. And it goes through. It's actually my best piece, like in terms of actual research and information. And some people were so pissed off at me for writing that. They were like, don't attack us for our Christian beliefs. And I'm like, I'm not. Like, if you just read the piece, because and I don't want to get into it, but I'm just saying, like, we do other things. Like, we are trying to branch out. I'm even actually trying to get my own clothing line going. But I haven't, it's not a lot yet. I'm still kind of getting some artwork and stuff like that, but.
Very cool. So with the clothing line, you plan on making like Round Earther Society shirts?
Well, we that's in the process. We haven't finished it yet. I'm trying to wait till after the beginning of the year, get a little more capital to be able to launch it. Because what we also do with the publishing, the small publishing company we were putting together, which is called Heron Press, we have like 7 books out. We do the Comic Cons, so we do some local Comic Cons like Planet Comic Con. Cool. We get a couple tables, sell some books, but it's not enough. So we were trying to diversify with having additional media, and eventually the product we need to sell is us. Like, we need to be able to do a good enough job so that people want to hire us or invest in us because of our personalities or what we're trying to do, what we're trying to build.
Yeah, that's cool. Very cool. But to your point earlier about you're saying how you get clumped in because of these views and things like that, and you're talking about all that media. I was listening to a podcast today with I can't remember. It's the guy that wrote Stealing Fire. I can't remember the author's name, but he was talking about how like evolutionarily humans love just pattern recognition. Like that's what we're really good at, and we get dopamine rewards in our brain when we recognize something and then act on it, and it's good for us. And I think that's sort of like this egoic wall that everybody has that keeps us safe from the enemy. And so I think that what a lot of these people are doing whenever you're getting painted into a corner, or they're painting your entire business into a corner or whatever it is that like pattern recognition of like, people don't really know you. They only know enough to know their idea of you.
Identity
to paint
politics.
that. Yeah, it's they're their version of your identity, though. It's like even deeper than that. So I don't know. I think that's an interesting concept, and I think it definitely applies to what you were saying earlier about this two-party system and how it could be harmful, because I think that's what a lot of us are doing, is pattern recognizing without really digging any deeper than that. And then I think we're missing a lot by not hearing out those people that fit into that box, you know?
Well, and some people, they don't want to hear alternative views, you know, like, because maybe it'll destroy what they already believe. I don't know. I actually don't know what the reasoning is. I will admit, most of the people that I listen to and most of the shows that I listen to are further right than I am. I don't know if you're familiar with Gavin McInnes.
Yeah.
I love Gavin McInnes, and I don't take it all seriously though, because I just, you know, I don't take it at face value. I understand there's nuance, and I understand he's also joking. Now, is he further right than me? Yes, he is. Is he more conservative than I am? Yeah, of course he is.
Yeah.
And so I listen to a little bit of Milo. Milo is much further right than me. But there's a reason. There's a reason why I listen to some of this.
Good old Milo.
Well, yeah, people, and I understand. Like, I get the vitriol towards Milo. I get it. But what I like about some of these people is they push the boundaries of the First Amendment. They push that freedom of speech, and I think you have to have people, even though we don't like some of the speech, and I don't even agree with some of it. I like that some people are out there pushing the boundaries of the freedom of speech, just to make sure that they're still there, that we do still have those. So when people try to shut them down from speaking at college campuses or things like that, or Ben Shapiro, I mean, it kind of shines a light on people that are trying to prevent freedom of speech. You know, that there's going to be, it's going to equal up into this giant rage.
I think some people are genuinely terrified of allowing free speech to take place if it offends their sensibilities in certain ways.
Yeah, it's like if they think
there's
it's
a lot of hypocrisy there, you know? Like, well, my free speech is different from your free speech because, you know...
Well, they call it hate speech, though.
Yeah, it can be called hate speech.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, people are threatened by that. This mic sounds like hot garbage.
What? No, dude, you're good, I promise.
I think we've addressed that already.
It'll sound good in post. You'll be all right.
So, what do you guys? How do you choose what you talk about in your episodes of the Round Earth Society? I mean, does politics and these beliefs play a lot into it, or you guys just kind of
politics, social issues? I mean, it is. We are kind of going wherever with it. But it's not out yet. But our latest episode was actually about hate speech. Does it exist? What we think of it? We're talking about college campuses. It's probably the best and most heated piece we've done so far. We try to keep everything light, because I also try not to take myself too seriously. Like, you know, I'm fine with people disagreeing. Him and I did agree on the hate speech, because I mean, to at least to some extent, I don't really believe that hate speech exists, at least not legally. You know, like, you can say, oh, that's hateful speech. Okay, fine. But it's not like we're not prosecuting people on hate speech here in America, at least not yet. You know, Canada's trying to do some of that. I also listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson. You guys familiar with Jordan Peterson?
Love that dude.
Because love Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
Like,
I actually really like him because of his theological beliefs more than political.
And they're strong. Like, I love. I'm trying to, because I'm not extremely religious, though of course I do believe in God. You know, I don't know if you listened to our God piece, or
I did.
You know, if God exists, because I do believe that God exists, and I kind of went through why I believe that God exists. But yeah, Jordan Peterson, all of his, I can just let it go on YouTube. I'll just let it scroll through, you know.
Yeah.
He's got so many lectures.
Yeah. And it's great. Most of them are great, you know, and sometimes I disagree with them, but doesn't matter. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like, I like what he says, so I would definitely recommend Jordan Peterson to anybody listening.
The fact that you disagree with some of those things means that you're really taking something away from it. You're processing it, you know.
Yeah, and it definitely says something about your character when you disagree, but you don't attribute that one disagreement to their character as a whole.
Nuance.
You don't think, oh, I disagree with him, therefore I hate him on all other aspects. It's like, no, I disagree with this one thing, but I know overall he's a intellectual dude, and he's really smart. That's for sure.
I love his pieces on when it comes to relationships and how young men feel these days. And I think he gives such a great perspective. And he's not, you know, because he's not out there blaming women, or even though he'll get pegged as, you know, transphobic or this or that.
Yeah, he gets lumped in with Milo a lot.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really a little unfair, because he's
right
a lot
at center, so he's alt-right automatically. Like,
yeah, and he's a lot more moderate than I mean, Milo's doing a lot of it to be inflammatory for sure. But he also can back up his arguments, and he's very smart. There's no denying that. It's that he, I think, is playing a character.
Yes,
you know, he's
I agree
playing
with that.
a role.
I agree with that.
That is popular. to a lot of people.
And it's a shame so many people will negate Dr. Peterson because, well, automatically, you know, he's one of them because of a few, you know. It all ties in with, you know, that whole straw man.
Yeah, that's what you have to do, especially with Jordan Peterson. You would have to build a straw man to be able to attack him, at least on those grounds.
He makes too much sense.
He's not. I've listened to many hours of him speaking, especially about the trans issue. And it's not that he's not saying that these people don't exist, or that if someone asked him specifically, if they were in his class, if they asked him to refer to him as with a specific pronoun, he already said he would. That was not the issue.
Yeah.
He was fighting against compelled speech from the government. So he's also I'm really big on the First Amendment, and I'm actually really big on the Second Amendment, which some people don't like. But I'm especially big on the First Amendment. And he's trying to push that in Canada because obviously they don't have a First Amendment, so they can kind of because that one of the laws was pushing that if you I'm trying to think of
the misgendering of your child or whatever.
The misgendering, I want to say, even without malicious intent, could potentially be illegal.
Child abuse or something like that.
Yeah, well, and they're looking at a lot of different stuff in Canada, but they're also doing weird stuff, man, in France.
Yeah
France is with Macron. He was wanting. I don't know. Are you familiar with Macron or what he's been trying to push? Don't want to lose my thought here, but he was wanting to claim that using specific terms towards females was also hate speech. Like, I'm guessing if you use like bitch and things like that, you could be fined for it. It wasn't like a prison time necessarily, but you could be fined just for using not gender pronouns, but offensive language towards women. Are you familiar with that, Macron?
No, I'm not familiar with that situation, but I did read a while ago. You're still talking about Canada, right?
We switched to France.
Okay.
We switched to France.
I heard something about that. Yeah, sorry, I had to turn the air off.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
But I was going to say, speaking of the Canada thing, there was a case where a comedian was being heckled. I don't know if you heard about this one, but they ended up, the people that were heckling him it was a lesbian couple. And I guess they were talking during a set, and he said something, which I don't know if you watch a lot of stand-up comedy, but usually hecklers get obliterated.
Yes.
You know, like they turn them into a joke, they make fun of them, or they just start a conversation. They do something to entertain the crowd using that person that decided to talk during their set. And he said something, and obviously it was some sort of derogatory term that was a joke meant towards lesbians. And he ended up losing that case and had to pay, I think, over $10,000
emotional
for using a joke that was not deemed funny, I guess. And I don't know if the joke landed. Maybe it really was distasteful, but I think that is crossing into that territory of like charging people for free speech.
That's when it gets scary.
That is when it gets a little bit scary, if you ask me.
Political correctness will kill comedy. You know, we just can't.
I heard you say that.
We just can't. Yeah. We can't have that. I mean, I want people to be funny, and sometimes you have to go a long way to be funny. Like, it's, you know, like, and you have to say a lot of stuff, and that's fine. Like, I don't agree. Like, I don't want to, you know, like really make someone feel uncomfortable and use, like, there's a lot of words I don't use, and I don't say, you know, I don't use a bunch of racist speech.
There is a difference between tasteful humor and just being a dick.
Yes.
But at the same time, whose decision is that to make?
Yeah.
Where is the line?
You can't make it illegal to be an asshole.
Yeah.
You know, like, there's people that are definitely assholes, and that's the way it is. We can't make that illegal. We need to keep that freedom in place. I don't know. So I'm almost always on the free speech side. In almost every case, I can't think of very many where
it's
where
a
I wouldn't
slippery
be.
slope once you start policing people's speech like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's this kind of just brings up the point of just how important not only comedy, because I do think that comedy is one of kind of the last stands when it comes to free speech, but I just think we're missing something if we're not talking about just the importance of conversation And I think it's like face-to-face conversation. I think a lot of what we're doing now is all over the internet, and a lot of our forms of communication, just conversation in general, I think is something that we're not doing a lot of, especially in this age of identity politics where we're all just projecting our ideas out to the world and using that to start fights. And it doesn't seem like a lot of what I see, at least, isn't really a conversation, more as, let me tell you my facts. Okay, now let me tell you my facts. Even though we all know that facts don't really sway anyone's opinion, but it's like we just have a bunch of people yelling their opinions at each other, but not really talking to each other.
To get stuck in an echo chamber to where, anything outside of their perspective is completely alien and shocking.
Yeah.
Well, numbers can be used in a lot of ways. That's it's disingenuous to say any particular number means really anything. Like, yes, you can measure something out, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. Like when you break down percentages, and I don't want to get, because we'll get into topics that are really going to be dangerous. But like when you get to the point of like cops killing specific races. Mm-hmm. And you break that down, you go, well, this group is killed more often by cops, therefore cops must be racist or the system must be rigged. It doesn't mean that. It might mean that, and it might mean that in individual cases, but here's what you're saying. If you're going to tell me that the whole system is rigged, that means you're telling me that each of those individuals in that system are either they're either placating someone or they're specifically racist or sexist or whatever. And I just don't believe that. Like, I understand that these people, have a certain amount of power, but they're just normal people. So yes, some of them are definitely racist. Some of them are definitely not, so it's not that simple. You can't just take numbers and run with it and go, this is what it means. No, that's not what it means. Could mean a lot of things. And there's 100 things that go into that, because when you start getting into, another thing I pick on is the gender wage gap. Mm-hmm.
That's actually one that I would not mind unpacking, because I've watched some Christina Summers videos on that, and I actually know enough about that to know that the wage gap is, well, I wouldn't say myth. Yes, if you add up the sum total of all the money that men make versus women, yes, men do make women, but in that survey they didn't take into account the jobs that women choose over men, maternity leave, things like there are way more women in education, and that's just happens to be a lower paying field. And so like there were all these other factors that they just kind of looked over and then ran with this statistic saying that women make, what was it, 78 cents to the dollar.
Is that what Hillary Clinton was saying, was 78 cents or whatever it was?
Something like that.
But what
per dollar. But yeah, that's exact example of how numbers can be deceptive.
Yeah, it's like you can technically go into a college and say, hey, we want a case study done and we want the outcome to be this. And they can make the numbers say whatever you really want it to say, which I think is kind of part of the reason that facts almost don't change people's opinion on anything anymore.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons, and I especially if you know something about it, I wish I was smarter in this, so because it would be easier to BS you if you were like, oh no, I don't know that much about it. I'd be like, oh, let me tell you what I know.
Well, I don't know a lot.
I
there's
can
a lot
of
pieces.
Repeat
information.
Yes,
so.
Yes, the earnings gap is pretty big. The earnings gap is, I want to say the earnings gap is actually 22%. For the most part, it affects the older women who didn't live in as equal of a society. Most younger women, especially women I believe that are childless, I want to say that they make on par with their male counterparts. I want to say they make within like 2%. Mm-hmm. And women, I think even in terms of the actual wage gap, not the earnings gap, the wage gap I want to say is between 6 and 9%, but there's a lot that goes into that. It's not so simple. Because women they tend to work in a lot of fields that have a lot more flexibility because they have children.
Yeah, and see, I feel like that, instead of taking offense to that, and maybe this is a misogynist thing to say, but if I were a woman or as a woman, that's something that I actually value, is that women tend to choose to take care of the kids more. Like, there are more fathers that choose not to be a father than there are mothers. And that's something that we have to take into account too, is that, I mean, if you look statistics wise, like, yeah, there are more women raising children too, and that's something to factor in.
Another thing that makes the whole conversation even more difficult is application of gender roles. Well, who says because I'm a woman I should be rearing children and be allotted more time off of work, for those certain factors, but
I would actually be okay with some with at least a certain amount of paid time leave, paid maternity leave. Mm-hmm. At least, I mean, I know Ivanka Trump, which I'm sure mentioning Trump at all would, it's like probably just made people's heads blow up. But she was for 6-week maternity leave pay, and I think that's great. That's a good start. I don't have a problem with that. But at the same time, as long as women are having children, it's always going to affect them in terms of their earnings. It's always going to, at least on some level. And I don't even, the thing is, like, I don't really care about money. Like, I think raising the kids is a hell of a lot more important than how much money. And if I make a few percentage different over my lifetime, maybe it does equal a lot of money. But you know what? I raised my child, and I'm close with my child because of that, which is way more important than a few dollars and cents. Yeah. I just don't think, I always hear something, and it is kind of echoed on the right a little bit. But if you could pay women that much less, let's say you could pay them a quarter less, why the hell would you hire men at all? I mean, why would you hire them? You just hire all women because you can pay them less and you'd get more profits, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there has to be a reason. It's not just, because if it was just a pure business decision, then men have no place to work at all.
Yeah, it's illegal to discriminate on pay based off of gender. So, I mean...
Yeah, and that was one thing that kind of confused me about that whole debate until I looked more into the whole numbers thing, because I thought that there were people who were under the impression that you could work at a place, like say a store, and because you're a woman, they're going to say, oh, you get the girl or you get the female wage, and that just happens to be a quarter less than the male's wage. I think
there are genuinely people who believe that, though, is the thing.
But I've never heard of a place of business that actually does that. It's illegal. Like, I can't name one place, so I just don't know if that's a real thing.
You cannot implicitly say, we're going to pay you less because of your gender. It's the fields and trades that people of their genders naturally gravitate towards that makes all the difference in the pay.
Well, but they also... There is information out there that says the more women that join a specific field, that the pay goes down. But I mean, it's just difficult, okay? Because there's also studies out there that show that women are not as negotiating their pay as good as men are, and I don't know why. Because Jordan Peterson says, based on scientific study, that women are more agreeable. Do I know this to be fact? I don't. I have no idea. Like, maybe it all. The thing is even generalizing like that, it's just difficult. It goes by the individual, because some women might be very agreeable and other ones are not at all. Like, the same thing with guys. It's just, it's too hard it's too difficult to break down just to say, just because the sex was this or that this is why it happened. That's a little ridiculous. Like, there's a lot of different reasons, and I think one of the biggest reasons, it just simply goes back to women having children. And here's the other thing. Like, let's say you do have individuals who are misogynists, who are offering the women less. Mm-hmm. What can we do about that? I don't even know how to fix it. I mean, if you don't know that they're a misogynist and they're intentionally doing this, how do you fix it? I don't know how to change it.
Yeah. Yeah, see, I don't know, because there's just so many, like, complexities to... I mean, every issue is like this, but, I mean, what we're talking about right now is just a good example of, like... It's like whatever people want to find, you're gonna be able to find it, and whether it's numbers that other people would argue are a little bit faulty or like errant, I guess you could say.
The problem I have is because when I'm looking up specific information, and sometimes when I'm looking for studies, like let's say on the wage gap, all I can find is sources that I know were right-wing sources. So sometimes I'll try really hard to find a moderate source, but you can't find one. Like for specific things, you'll just find left-wing sources because right-wing groups don't study those. And then on other issues, I'll just find right-wing groups, and I'm like, this is too difficult just to kind of boil down to, it's because they're female. Man, that's it's really tough. I have a hard time doing it. And the same with race. I mean, it's just difficult. Now, it's a real mess, man. Like, I couldn't break it down. And even if we could, it wouldn't mean anything. Like, I couldn't give you an answer. And I don't think anybody can specifically answer exactly why those numbers happen the way they do. There's just pieces. I know there's a bunch of different pieces, and some of it just go back to the individual. That's all. If everybody individually works harder to have better jobs or puts more time into work, you're probably going to move up the pay scale. And if you don't have children, that's the other thing. It's not that I shouldn't say that I want women having children, but I definitely don't want women feeling like they can't have children so they can compete.
Yeah, like it's anti-feminist to go to work or to raise a child and be a stay-at-home mom, because then you're assuming a gender role, and then you're not. It's almost putting a lot of women in the place to where they have to pick a side too, and kind of dig in their heels. And like I've heard some crazy stories where, you know, if you try to propose anything like that, then people are getting labeled as like a men's rights advocate now. Yeah. That's been one of the bigger things lately that I'm like, what? Like,
some people have mentioned that to me as if I might be a men's rights advocate, and I was thinking in my head, well, maybe I am.
I'm just to be advocates for everybody.
Yeah, I'm just a everybody advocate. Like, let's all just chill, you know, and be cool.
No, I agree. Well, the problem that we're having, one of the problems we're having, and just as humans, is tribalism. You know, it's killing us. We got to quit dividing each other up, man. Like, because that's the other thing when you're talking about dissecting people and putting each other in groups. That's exactly what we're doing. And we're doing it on sex. We're doing it on race. We're doing it on sexual orientation. It just goes on and on. You can keep dividing people up as much as you can. And all it does is hurt all of us. I mean, that's all it does. It just hurts everyone. Yeah. You know, but they don't see it that way. The people that are actively pushing that, they don't see it that way at all. And I don't know. Like, it just... I don't know how to fix that either.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I had more answers.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we turn against ourselves, we're really impeding our forward progress.
Mm-hmm. Which this always just brings me back to how important conversation is, though, because if we're all just, like you said, looking at those far right or far left news sources and then getting on the internet for all this, and we're not really talking to any other humans, then the information you're getting is not really applicable in any situation, which is why we should get off this. And I want to just say that I really like what you're doing with Zach and the Round Earthers, because I think that you guys kind of, Will and I were talking about it, of where we're kind of doing a similar thing.
You wish
here.
you could be as almost partisan in your stances.
I wish I could.
I know we definitely talking about some of the things you guys seem to talk about, but we kind of have to check ourselves when it comes to subscribing to any strong position, because nuance is a reoccurring theme.
Yeah,
amongst us. But no, I definitely agree. I think you guys are bringing up stuff that needs to be talked about, and you're reminding people that it's okay to have a belief that's not, you know, what you're accustomed to.
Yeah, in the mix, like I think what Will and I kind of have in common is that I actually feel like you and Will are more similar personality wise. Like, you guys both looked at each other like, "Yup, libertarian."
I can feel his aura.
Yeah, you get the vibe. So I was like, that's why I was like, all right, I gotta have Will here. And I actually feel like I have a more similar personality to your other guy, Zach.
Yeah, Zach.
And then I was listening to I listen to a lot of podcasts, if you haven't noticed, but Sebastian Younger, and he was talking about this. It's sort of like an energy or your heart or whatever it is, but like conservative versus liberal, and how he was, I guess, proposing this idea that the world needs both, and that we need people that kind of have that heart, like that conservative tendency, and that more like, let's think about the logistics, you know, that more conservative vibe. And then we need those people with the liberal heart who are just like, you know, the hippies who are just like, hey, let's try to make everybody happy here. Because then when you get those two to work together, then it seems like you're going to get the best of both worlds, and you're going to get people who are going to be, you know, the realist and conservative, and you get the logistics in order and things like that. And then you're going to have the people that, you know, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is they used to not all be that different. And they used to, it seems like there could be a place for that two-party system even to complement itself, but it's like it's not. And I'm not even arguing for the two-party system. I'm just saying that, like, you and Zach seem to have that conservative and liberal kind of style to you. I don't know if that was something that you guys talked about before you started the podcast or what.
No, it definitely wasn't.
Really? Really?
You know, it just kind of happened that way. Him and I, we used to work together at Bass Pro in Olathe, and we'd always talk. And I knew he was more liberal than I was for sure. But yeah, no, we both want to do a podcast, and we just happened to start talking to each other again, man. And it just kind of just kind of went that direction. And then because we had so many conversations about social issues and politics at work, it just made sense.
Yeah.
And then we just went that route. What I would say though is, I would definitely, everyone should be aware of living in any kind of a bubble, or taking specific arguments online and assuming that any group of people believes anything, it's just not a good way to be, or that you think that people are really that dumb, or you see a meme and you think, oh my gosh, how could this person believe that? Well, they probably don't. It's probably fake. Don't trust anything that you see online for sure. Yeah. Don't trust it. If you see it on Facebook, it doesn't make it real. Try to find a legit news source. And if they seem too biased, I always try to balance it out as much as I can. And go to different places. If I was going to read an article on Fox News, I would never post it to my friends, right? Because my buddies are farther left than I am. So I always look for one of their left-wing sources that has a very similar article, and I send that to them.
You can't give them an easy in.
No, because they'll be like, oh, yeah, because some people will just be like, oh, you read Fox News, and they won't even read it.
Yeah.
So then I'll post a lot of stuff that I think is a little more moderate, where it's kind of a little more toned down.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think that we do need that balance. Like with Star Wars, we need that balance of the Force.
Yeah.
But the only thing that scares me is in the Western world, we're like the last bastion of anything that's conservative. Like America is the last bastion of conservatism, and that's what I do kind of fight for that a little bit. Now I don't. When this might think that's kind of funny. When I was growing up, I was actually a hell of a lot more liberal. And when I was in college, I thought I was. I read a lot of Communist Manifesto stuff. I was very well versed on the Communist Manifesto.
Yeah, and you studied. Political science.
History and political science.
History, okay.
I haven't finished yet. I'm going to finish. Okay. I'm going to finish, man. I'm a second semester junior.
Okay. Super junior.
Yeah. Just need a little more time.
Yeah.
Just need a little more time.
It's all good, man. I wasn't cut out for school. It's all right.
Well, not everybody is. That doesn't mean anything bad about you, though. You can still be great.
I try to believe that. So. But, cool, man. Well, I just want to say thanks for doing the podcast. And before we get out of here, is just tell me everywhere that people can find any of your work.
Well, the biggest thing that we're trying to do, like I said, everything kind of goes back up to asinine media. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to create a independent news source that's asinine. Other prongs of that, one of them is the Round Earther Society, and we're on Facebook or Twitter. We don't have a website for that yet, but we do have an asinine website that has all of our, of course, you've been on there with all of our articles and whatnot. We enjoy that. We also push Heron Press. Heron Press is the publishing company that we've been working on for a while, for about the last 4 years. Right now we have we just launched a short story contest, a themed short story contest for each month. It's just a $10 token payment, but it's only paying for flash fiction anyway. It's 500 to 1,000 words. The theme right now is sci-fi superhero. That's that's what we're looking for.
Cool.
So yeah, you can, like I said, you can find us on Facebook or Twitter, Heron Press, Asinine, Round Earther Society.
Cool, man.
But
well,
yeah.
You got anything we need to cover before we get out of here?
Who, me?
Yeah, anybody.
I think we're good.
Cool, man.
No, if I kept going, dude, we would talk forever. This would never end.
Yeah,
literally.
we're gonna definitely have to do this again, though, for sure. We'll have to pick a topic.
Yeah,
next time.
Yeah, I have no problem with that, dude.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Jesse. It's been awesome.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into the Better Ideas podcast, and thank you for making it all the way to the end of the episode. If you'd like to contribute to the show monetarily, you can do that at patreon.com/betterideas, or you can just follow me on Twitter at betterideas14. You can go to itunes.com and leave me a review or a 5-star rating. You can also do the same thing on Facebook, or you can just keep listening. I'm really glad that you guys are listening. So until next time.
Bye.